So happy that we can all get on the same page here and hit the record button.
That took a lot.
I mean,
That
it did, but we
really
had fun.
we
I'm
went
just
for a
not, I'm
journey.
gonna not talk so I don't see red. Now I'm very conscious of the red. Like I'm getting nervous.
You're gonna be
Well,
great.
do we have
I'm naturally
three?
very loud, so it's hard.
You are. So we have all known each other for a long time in separate roles, but I know I was thinking about it this morning when I was getting ready that Sarah, you're probably one of the older friends that I've had in the professional world. We've known each other for 11 years now as clinicians. Like that's how we became friends,
Wow.
right?
It,
It's been that long.
I
yeah,
kinda feel like that's as long as I've known Sarah too. Longer, actually, maybe.
maybe maybe longer. No, no, it can't be because I met you after Jill.
2016.
Yep,
Yeah.
because I met Jill through her husband.
And I had the honor and privilege of doing my internship with
Yeah,
Sarah
yes.
at Insight in Ridgefield, Connecticut, with Liz Jorgensen and working with the little adolescent IOP
I
clients.
know. I love the
We
teens.
love them. So cute.
Yeah, that's where we don't we're not the same.
We're not aligned on that at
I
all.
prefer not to. Yeah.
I love the teens.
So we're here today to kind of talk and we've kind of transformed our relationship. I think we've been friends for so long and worked in kind of professional settings, but I remember meeting you. I can still remember Alan being like, "Yeah, you have to meet Sarah." Like she wrote
That's what
this
he said to
book.
me.
She wrote this book, High Functioning Alcoholic, and she was on
Okay.
Oprah. And I was like, "Dude,
Aw.
Oprah, like she's a bad bitch if she was on Oprah. Like that's OG."
It was a good
Um,
time. Now the kids are like, "Who?"
That's
being on
amazing.
Oprah is a flex though, for sure.
Well,
Yes.
it was kind of it was my dream when I wrote my book. And my publicist was like, "Yeah, everybody walks in here and says that." And
But you did it.
I was like, "Yeah, but I really think I can do this and I think she'd love this topic." And then they're like, "Okay, we can't promise you that." And then I wasn't even using them at the time. One of their producers found me because of things that were on the internet that I had written, and yeah, it was amazing.
What year did you write High Functioning Alcoholic?
2009, it came out. The hardcover and then the paperback was 2010.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been I mean, that was right after I got sober, but also would not have been a genre or a title that would have drawn me because I was a low functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, it
So
was definitely not written for Jill.
Or me.
It wasn't written
No.
for your husband either.
It wasn't written for any of us or Alan or
I
my
it was written for
husband.
Sarah. Sarah is
wrote it
the
for
high functioning
myself,
alcoholic.
actually. It was very healing. I healed myself.
You know what's interesting though? I feel like there's such a common thread between Oprah having this like very large passion for behavioral health. And what I just thought about is that one is that I had a young adult woman who was living in my sober living many years ago that I was running. Her whole camera, Oprah's whole crew came out and interviewed her in the house. They found her and
Oh,
her story and what they did this whole segment on a high functioning family in Fairfield County and the tragedy that happened to her dad. Her dad was in a physical accident and she fell victim to substance abuse. And she came and interviewed, her team came and interviewed a bunch of people in the house. And then subsequently, when I was an adolescent in treatment, Oprah would send a lot of the girls to the treatment center that I was in, and then they would come in and they would interview them, like, halfway through their treatment process to do, like, the update, show. Do you guys remember those, like, back in
oh,
the
my
day? And,
friend
like
Dr. Phil did things like that too.
yeah,
Oh, I used to watch
exactly.
Oprah like after school.
Me
Like,
too.
oh yeah.
Yes.
I would
Or
record
Maury.
tapes and I would use them for clients, like about like finding meaning in, whatever it is that you're going through. It's not, there are people that suffer in different realms and how can we learn from that? And I would use these VHS tapes and then pop them in at work. This is aging myself here.
I mean, and to think that years later you would write your second book, Parents in Recovery, and have the honor to be on No Permission
I
Necessary.
mean,
I
it's
mean,
like our
honestly.
like I'm not like I have nothing. There's no other dream higher than this. Like
Exactly.
I'm done. I'm
It's
done.
really come full circle
The
now.
publicist, I told her I'm done after today. I don't need any more services.
That is so amazing. I mean, it really is, though. I remember you presenting on the high functioning alcoholic, and I don't know if you remember this, in New York City
Yeah.
with Austin Hootailing, Brad Sorty, my business partner, and a couple other people.
Fire,
Yes.
Dr. Tim Benson,
Yes.
and Clear Consulting.
I mean, that had to, yeah, Doug Lyons, and I'll never forget the story he told about that young woman who suffered with an eating disorder and him. I mean, it forever imprinted. But, I think what I started to really admire about, first of all, you and your ability to bring people together was that this humility about you that really is so willing to give knowledge to people who are up and coming in the behavioral health space, who are hungry, who are yearning for direction. And I remember so many of those moments, obviously because I worked under you and interned under you and Liz, but also because events like that, or being able to say, hey, like, I have a question about this, or I'd like to hear more about this. And, I think that there's this thread between the three of us for sure that proves that if you're willing to kind of help the next, generation, so to speak, in this behavioral health space, that you create this like really beautiful fabric, and you get to really learn from one another and lean on one another in so many different areas other than just work too, right? Because obviously our relationship, on both sides has evolved in different ways. So, that's really what
Yeah.
stands out to me all those years ago.
Well, just
Aw.
look at how our relationships have shifted. I mean, you two did a training together years ago, a few years ago
Yeah.
now, and we were both featured in the new book, Parents in Recovery, since we're
Yes, my
all parents
experts.
now.
Yep.
And
We have the
and
book right
now
here,
we're
guys.
business and Sarah's also my business partner at Waterview Behavioral Health, which is wild because we work together. Like, we used to talk every day before, like,
I
especially through
know.
text, but now it's like on steroids.
We have so many we have so many different topics that we could be texting about. It goes from like work to like the most ridiculous. I know. We span all topics. It's
But
really fun.
I ghost her around 8 p.m. to go to bed, and then Sarah thrives into the dark of the night, and
Yeah, I
then I
schedule
text her
send
back at
emails
5
to
in the
8.
morning.
Yeah, I have to basically, I mean, I'll be texting with her sometimes and then she'll just disappear. And then and then I'm not up when she's up. But yeah, I schedule send my emails so that like I don't, yeah,
I
get
taught
them
her
in the
that.
morning and can't do it with
Can
my
you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that so much of our podcast has been about Jill and I's own like routines and, ways that we feel that we operate optimally,
yeah.
and your schedule is so vastly different. When Jill and I think about it, it gives us anxiety. So why don't you just share a little bit about where you thrive? Because I'm sure there's people that are like, can relate and
I
identify.
also think that when you answer that, I also think there is a tie to why you wrote this book, Parents in Recovery, because in general, your experience with parenting and how you show up for yourself is
Is
different than
different.
I think other people, and that was your experience.
Mhm.
That's that's really true. I mean, I'm an only child. Let's just start with that. So I have been able to do the self-care piece and put my recovery and my schedule first. I also have a partner that's very helpful and who happens to be more of a morning person, so that definitely helps. But honestly, I'm not like in my family. My mother goes to bed at like 1:30 in the morning and gets up at 9:30. Like I'll call her at 11 and she's like, "I'm on the treadmill." Like
Oh, so this is like,
this
oh,
is
I didn't
Oh,
realize
Sarah's
this.
mom. Yes, they
or
are
my
2 points
mom.
apart.
Yeah, like we get energized at night and then her mother was the same way.
Okay.
Come from a long line of night owls. It's real, right? And I'm sure there's people that are are morning people and people that aren't. And then a lot of people will say, well, I became a morning person after I had a child. And I was like, well, I didn't. So I don't, it really didn't rewire me in any way. It just made me miserable when she was up early, all of that. I had all these tricks. Like I would do anything for sleep. Um, I would like put treats out in the morning, snacks, treats. It's a dog, it's a kid. I put I'd put snacks out for her and put the remote on like the cartoon channel, like when she was 4, and I would be like, "Oh, you can just put the TV on and mommy's gonna sleep." Like I came up with all these tricks because there's a few years where, I mean, you're getting up, right? Like this just that we're not this isn't optional if especially if Josh wasn't around, but um I struggled with it. It affected my mental health. Like sleep is one of those things, like I studied it, and even for my book, I included a whole thing about the impact of sleep, and they were talking about 3 different types of sleepers, basically people that can have sleep deprivation or interrupted sleep, and they're yeah, it's a little annoying. And then there's some people that are yeah, it's kind of moderately frustrating and it bothers them. And then there's the catastrophic category. I'm in the
Exactly.
catastrophic. Yeah, so it kind of like goes like that like dee, 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 boom. And I'm in the catastrophic. So I really do value my sleep, but with Jill, she's able to go to bed earlier. For me, the problem is that I'm not wired that way. So I'm
Right.
actually my evening time for me, I actually struggle to when people talk about downtime, like even on the weekends, I struggle to just sit down and watch a TV show or sit down and read during the day. I'm such an evening relaxer that my me time is really in the evening. There's a stillness about the evening that I love. I that to-do list for me just completely shuts down and I don't feel guilty for sitting and being and something happens. It could be the cortisol, like our cortisol levels increase in the evening, and maybe that's something that, I'm sensitive to because they're actually higher in the morning and I feel horrific. I am more stressed in the morning. Um, and so I've just been able to somehow structure it. Again, are we lucky Jill and I run a business and I don't have to be at a 7 a.m. meeting? Yes, I've done that. I've worked hospital shifts. I've done all that stuff. But if given my preference, that's not the pattern I like. I am really good at getting things done. I actually, when I was in grad school, I used to do a lot of my best work after 10 p.m. So
Mm.
it is, my brain does function really well, into the evening. In fact, I have to almost shut myself down. I found that taking a walk with, like, my dog, things like that, the end of the day could kind of put some closure onto it, because I could keep going because I do, like I said, my brain kind of gets going towards the evening, and Jill is definitely the opposite because
I
she
have to be
wakes up
like, "Hey,
early.
so Sarah, I'm not working anymore, so we're gonna have to table this for tomorrow or Monday
Yeah,
morning." I will literally put a cap on it because my brain shuts down. I mean,
yeah.
that stillness you talk about, I think 4 in the morning is I identify with that when, like, no one else is up, no one can ask me for anything, like, between 4 and 6 is where I thrive in the morning.
Well, I've had people
Um,
say that. "Oh, just get up in the morning. That's such quiet time." One of my other, like, best friends from college will talk about how that's her time, and I'm like, "But I'm miserable." So it's, like, not my time, actually. That's the time I get up for the airport only. Like, there's no other time I'm up at 4, and if I'm up at 4, I'm going back to bed. Like, that's just an intermission, you know? Um, so
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a a a good amount of folks that really do feel like they operate best at night. I feel like I could be in bed at 7:30 and be totally fine. It's gotten earlier and earlier and earlier. Like add another kid and then it just gets a little earlier.
and I'm the
but it's true,
opposite,
there's 2
actually.
different people. It's just how yeah,
The more
totally.
stressed I've been or the more demands I've had on me, the more kind of like stimulus that's come at me that day, the later I stay up.
Well, I
Can
mean,
you talk a
you talk a lot in your book, which had been such like a really amazing gift that Jill and I were given to be a part of the book and be able to share our experience both from a parent perspective as well as a professional perspective. So our parent perspectives are anonymous. But if you guys would like to know our parenting perspectives, you can reach out to us directly and we'll will give you the tea. And then from the professional perspective, we were actually quoted. But some of what, I saw in the book was really, you know, how to become part of the change. So, like, you touched on a little bit of, what that looked like for you with your daughter, who's now,
13.
oh my God, I was going to say 10. Uh,
Audrey's 10.
so I know, but they look the same age, I feel like the two of them.
They're serious about.
They really do.
So, but when you think about, you changing as a parent and you're someone, you are very, vocal about being somebody who's also in long-term recovery and, what that's looked like for you. So how did that change when you became a parent? And what were some of the struggles that you feel like you really had to grapple with and sacrifice
So sleep.
essentially?
Just kidding.
Yeah. Well,
But
sleep. Yeah.
yeah, so it's interesting because I have one child and I'm an only child. I'm a person that recognizes my limits. And for me, having one child was really hard. And I've done a good job of embarrassing myself in front of parents with like talking about just it was a lot for me. I talk about intrinsic and extrinsic parenting types. I'm extrinsic, like it didn't come naturally to me. It wasn't something that flowed. I know Molly, I know you've talked about how it sort of just you felt like a natural instinct when you had your children and that didn't kick in for me. Like I still and even some of my friends that have known me for a long time kind of it's almost comical that I'm a parent. Like people laugh about it a little bit. Like it's just I don't know. I can't really explain why. But there were a lot of pieces of it that were just so hard for me. And again, I have in recovery from a mental health, I mean, from both mental health and from addictive issue with alcohol. And together, it can be also my personality.
Hmm.
I'm independent. I waited 7 years before I had my daughter. So I was 35 when I had my daughter. I think when people have kids older, they're also more ingrained in their ways. I've also really valued my career through the years, and that's brought me a lot of meaning and satisfaction. And I felt like this extra layer of having a child was so hard on my recovery, but I felt like it was harder than other people's experience, and
Hmm.
that was hard for me. Sometimes I felt embarrassed that it was so difficult, like when I was at the school with my daughter talking to some other parent, and I tried to be vocal about my challenges because I wanted other parents to actually open up too and not just sit there and have this fake conversation about how great everything is. So I would be vocal and just say, "Oh, wow, this was a little bit challenging, but this is good," not all negative. And this one mother I was like, "Oh, how many do you have?" And I was just going on a little bit about, like, just my challenges, and she goes, "Oh, I have 5." She was pregnant for 6.
You're like,
And
cool.
I was like, "Okay, I feel really stupid." She goes, "But the jump from 0 to 1 was so hard." I'm like, "Thank you for making me feel better." I mean,
Validating.
considering she
Yeah.
was birth mother, like, really vibing with the whole thing really well, and I think there's a lot of variables, but what the variable I found in common when I interviewed everybody and when I interviewed experts was that our recovery and recovery in general from mental health, physical challenges, and addictive issues, when you throw in a child 1, 2, 3, it adds another layer to that situation. So the self-care, the routine you were in, the sleep habits you were in, the way you were eating, the way you were scheduling your life, it all gets uprooted when you have a child and when they're in those different stages, right? So the baby stage is different, the toddler stage is different, the, you know, the tween, the teen. So it keeps changing. And that layer for me when Eve was younger was much harder for me as she's gotten older and more independent. I have been much lighter and I've been able to be much more balanced. But for other people, it's different. It's different. Like they find the
Well,
young
for other people,
Well,
easier.
from a therapist perspective, and I've seen this with clients, but I've also started to see this with myself. Like, I think there are parts of our own journey that as a child that become triggered along the way for people. And so when you're thinking about recovery, but I think parenting in general, when you had a traumatic event that happens at a certain age or some invalidating experience, some when you are a parent, you start realizing how your childhood was from a parent's eyes and a parent's lens. You can't really understand that until you're a parent. You
Mhm.
can talk about that, what that experience is like, but until you have a child, like, I'm in this really weird space right now where my daughter is literally me. And so the joke used to
But in
be,
that respect,
except this week I told her, "You know how everyone used to say, but nicer? You're now just me." Because she's no longer nice. She has turned,
There's no
and
added.
in the background, my husband's just like, "That's you." Like, all this, so I can't even, but it's strange because I'm reliving my middle school kind of experience as she's kind of having hers. And so I think that kind of throws people for a loop at these different stages too, because like I don't think everyone's aware of how they're reacting, not just to what's happening to their child, they're reacting to what actually happened to them.
it's so hard to not go back in time. Like when I look at my daughter and I think, okay, so you're in eighth grade, I'll visually, like I'm a visual thinker. I like go back in time and think about what was going on in my life at that time. Like it just happens.
So my daughter's in 5th grade, and I found an essay. I don't know if I told either one of you this. I found an essay that I wrote my freshman year in college, when I was getting all the Christmas stuff out last weekend. And in it, it talked about how in 6th grade we had DARE class. And in DARE class, I felt really, I think I even said ashamed in the writing. Like I felt ashamed because here are all my classmates learning about drugs, and I had already used drugs for the first time in 5th
Mm.
grade because I had smoked weed already. And so I told I told Alan this, and he's like, "Oh my god, you were Audrey's age and you were smoking weed?" And I was like, "I guess. I always told people I was 12 when I first started smoking weed, but I guess maybe I was 10 or 11 in 5th grade?" And he got really freaked out about that. He's like, "Well, what was
He's
going
still
on in your
reeling.
life? What was going on in your life that you did this?" And it's like, I just had access to it. Like, we just have to keep these lines of communication. Here I am, like, no, not a big deal. We just need to keep these lines of communication open with
Pretty early.
her.
I'll give you that. That is pretty early.
And you all know my family. It's not like I grew up. It's not
No,
like these things were accessible in my home.
no, it's
No.
amazing. I absolutely love talking to your mother in particular.
I think
But
too
it
though
is
we
startling to think that, though.
That is startling. I I'm startled by my daughter's lack of interest. I'm like, does anybody do anything fun? Like, what's going on in high school, people? Like, you go to football games and everybody's just hanging out? Like, what's going on?
Her? That's weird.
and they don't get their licenses. They don't wanna drive anymore either. It's
They're
bizarre.
all risk averse.
These kids
Risk
are
averse.
so different. I mean, I feel like even my high school friends, like all of us, just listen, I didn't party alone. Like our kids are just like a lot of them are just on the more square end of things. It's interesting. And some of it's the generation. But there's a control factor to it that I think people feel like when their kids are younger, they're in this bubble and they can kind of control everything. And then as they get
Mhm.
into tweens and teens, they lack control. And I'm welcoming it because I like that level of autonomy between my daughter and I. And I love all the conversations that I love the spicy chai tea, I love all of that. So I just sit
Asparagus
there.
in the Mac.
Oh, I love it so much. Like it's so,
Molly's
and
gonna struggle. Molly's gonna struggle when she gets on this side of things.
this is like, my mom's like, oh, you're in your sweet spot. I'm like, I really am. I was meant to pop out like an 11-year-old. Like,
Well, I d w there's a couple things I have concerns about. I mean, I do feel like having concerns about our own preconceived notions of growing up because we all 3 had, very risky young adult adolescence.
yeah,
I'm not sure when everyone started, but,
14.
yeah. So, anywhere between 14 and 16, the wheels were off. The wheels were off
We
before they
had
even really were
which,
on.
let's be clear, the research shows that if you're using as a teenager, you are predisposed to be an alcoholic or an addict, just period, because of your
It's
brain
a if you
development.
start before 15, it's a 40% higher chance.
I think I saw John Lieberman's stat too, when he was interviewed on Zach's podcast that said 1 in 4 if you use under 21, and if you wait till you're 25, it's 1 in 25, something along those lines. Or no, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, before 21, and then if you wait till you're 21, it's 1 in 25,
It's 21.
which I feel like is a
It's
very,
huge.
very
it's it's huge, and every
It's
year, I mean,
delighting.
I like that statistic. The one I have is just around like talking to teens, and this is everyone says, "What's the discussion you should have?" All this. Well, one, I think you should inform them of their genetic history at a point when they may have access to substances, so they can make smart decisions. But and giving them a fair shot at knowing their genetics, like we talk about medical conditions to everybody. Oh, you have this in the family and that in the family, and like, hello, let's talk
Not
about.
always. Not all families. Some
I
families don't even
literally
talk
just
about
had to
that.
come I literally just had to call my dad this morning. I was like, "Hey, I had this, like, elevated level on my labs. Is there any, like,
Is there a
genetic
history?
predisposition?" You know?
No, that's true. I just think people are less shameful about like a genetic medical condition, but like people, the behavioral
Yes,
stuff is a
of
little
course.
under the
Sure.
radar.
Yeah, but let's talk about that though, because I know for myself, and I've been asked this by other women in recovery, mothers specifically, but I've taken my children to
Yeah,
meetings since they were young. I
Me too.
remember from a young age, Audrey, I think, was 4 or 5, and she pointed to a bottle of liquor in like a magazine, and she was like, that's for you because you're an alcoholic. And I was like, yeah, but I'm an alcoholic that doesn't drink that anymore. There's a very big distinction here. And
that's
I had
for
to
you
like give
too.
that, but she also knows that other people in our family, well, is this person an alcoholic because they drink?
Right.
No. And so
Just because something ain't right.
I've been educating my family. We were at the casino a couple weeks ago. The
Oof.
entire parking garage smelled like weed. Like,
Oh,
what am
yeah.
I just gonna, well, what's that smell? She's 10 now. That's
I know.
drugs, baby. I don't know what
Well,
to tell you. That's
what you
weed.
want them
I'm not gonna
to,
lie.
yeah. Well, plus you want them to know what it is, like to protect them too.
But
Like,
I do think that there's differing, and you mentioned this in your book. I think different people in recovery have different. There are some people in recovery that don't talk about that at all with
well,
their
you can
children.
see, like in that chapter, I decided in some chapters, I decided the responses were just so, I couldn't really even make a theme. Like, I couldn't even find a pattern. That was one of the topics where I couldn't find a pattern. People were just doing so many different things around disclosure, and what Cindy House in her book Mother Noise calls it like the telling, which I really love that. The telling. So I really did list off all the different things, and like, yes, like Jill, you are, and Molly, I know there are some people, and I in Boston, people would take their kids to meetings, all that. I got too distracted. My daughter, I got too preoccupied with her making noises. It just didn't work for me. So I ended up actually having meetings at my house, and having parents come over with their kids. It was just more comfortable that way. But the disclosures were interesting. There were some people who were sober who just absolutely did not want their kids to know why they were not drinking or using substances, or, what whatever was part of their family culture. They weren't abstaining. And others who the kids knew since they could ever remember that their parents were sober.
Yeah.
Now, Eve knew that we didn't drink, but she didn't know why. We just told her it wasn't healthy for some time. But when I started writing this book, that's when I made the decision that I was going to tell her the why. So I actually
Which
thought,
is interesting because your first book talks about your recovery.
I know she never read it.
And throughout the decade of knowing you, the conversations that we've had
I
around
know.
around Eve, like, I mean,
I don't
that's the other
understand
piece.
it.
And I think that's the other piece of why I've never hidden it from my children, because me and my husband both work in behavioral health.
I know we
The
do.
kids hear conversations all the time.
Not what we talk about. We're always like, this person's sober, this person relapsed. Like, it's just part of what goes on in our house in conversation.
Yeah.
We have friends with so many people in recovery, so many people that have struggled. And so I thought when I went to tell her that she was going to say, oh, I knew. Do you know what I mean? Because she's pretty perceptive. I'm not lying, girl was shocked. She was like, what? I thought you were like, didn't like it. It was like, like she was absolutely like
Floored.
paradigm shifting for her. And I was shocked at her shock because of all the like talk in my house. So that was interesting to me. And I also think you don't want to believe that your parents had an issue with something. So there's
Struggled,
that
right.
part of her invested in
Well, yeah. That
their
ideal
love.
parent is kind of,
Yeah. I
oh,
think she,
yeah.
even if the data pointed in one direction, I think her wish for us to not have something that went haywire in our lives was probably stronger. Um, but it was really powerful, actually, the conversation I had with her, and I was able to talk with her about family history and about this, and I'm not unrealistic about her drinking in the future, but she is just like, uh, why would I drink before I'm 21? I'm like, you're saying that now. I'm in addiction treatment. Like, I'm not naive. Like, don't, you can sit here when you're 13 and 12 and say all these things to me, but I just don't want you to feel like if you change your mind that you can't be open with me about that. Right. I'm not hating on everything because I'm sober. I want the dialogue to be there, but she's very turned off by it. Like, she doesn't like being around people, that she sees the personality change because she didn't grow up with any of that in her house. It's very foreign, and she just
Yeah.
Uncomfortable.
very
That's real.
uncomfortable. She's very uncomfortable. And what's interesting is I thought her friends whose parents drink regularly would have more of a comfort around it, but then they open up to her about it and they talk about, you're lucky your parents don't drink. Um, they are very sensitive to the personality changes they see. I thought they were going to be immune to it. So it's been interesting to me to sort of see like the perspective of the kids. It really shocked me. I thought there would be more of like a numbness to it for kids that grow up in a home where, alcohol's the norm, but they're very sensitive to it.
Well, I think we also talked a lot about in the book was this genetic predisposition versus healthy attachment.
Mhm.
And is there a level of fear around genetic predisposition, which I think I definitely answered in a like robust way because both my husband and I also have a genetic predisposition if you look at our history. And so I just wonder, does this change the tides? I don't know because I think that there's a lot more data out there on how to communicate effectively with your kids, how to open up dialogue with your children, how to meet their needs in a more emotionally safe way. Not to say that I'm totally like on board for like gentle what people in this day and age call gentle parenting. I think there's definitely like a mixture of meeting someone's emotional needs and also having, a good sense of boundaries and you know, kind of
Discipline.
parameters and discipline. But I definitely think we're more educated today. And when I do think about it, I don't know. I mean, I guess we're gonna know a lot more kind of with our children. Like
Yeah.
this kind of wave is going to be the first kind of wave where there's a lot more observation and studies around, how we show up as parents and does that change the trajectory of where they struggle,
I feel
and
like
what
that.
they struggle with.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like, I went underground with a lot of things, and there was a lot more of an old school vibe to like my parents' generation. I think our generation is, in general, I think more, not just friends with their kids. Like, there's definitely boundaries, but there's just less of that formal, like, authoritative, um,
Rigidity. Yeah.
rigidity. Exactly. And, is that helpful? Does it, there's also the variable of the cell phones and that sort of being their generation's battle of addictive behaviors and the pandemic and some of the social regressions that went on. um, so there's a few variables I think that are going to feed into this generation around their substance usage, but the numbers are down. Like, for some of the teenagers, like, there is less substance use going on. Is it because they're extremely antisocial and can't form a sentence? I don't know. Um, is it, is it just because there's more awareness around how it's not healthy, and how there's other, I don't know. It's interesting.
I think technology has a lot to do with it because I will tell you, I was talking to somebody about this other day. When I was in high school, we used to pull kegs out into the woods and we were
Right.
out there partying. Now, mind you, cell phones started to be a thing when I was a freshman, but they didn't have cameras on them. You can't couldn't do one of those parties these days because the moment there's a pack of
Oh,
kids together. They're
yeah,
posting
buzz
everything on
though.
Snapchat, on every, a social media outlet, and the police are gonna be there immediately. Like, they're shutting that down quickly.
I'm telling you, I'm
So,
glad I grew up in the 90s. I can't even tell you the freedom I had. Nobody knew
that
where I
I
was.
think is a big part of it, though, because I think
We
they
were
know.
unhinged.
I mean
Unhinged.
And the thing is, like,
thank
I came
God.
from my parents were like strict. My dad was a personal injury lawyer. I mean,
My parents were
he
strict too.
I'm just
My
like,
dad would be waiting outside my friends' houses at 3 a.m. for me to show back up and pull me and put me right
I
back in the
wasn't
car and
definitely
drive me.
inside waiting and my mom was monitoring, but, like, it was not pretty. Like, the cars people drove, like, is it a safe car? Like, it went the gamut, rated R movies, like, it was wild, right? And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good, thanks." But n so I'd say I was sleeping one place, but no one knows where you are.
No,
Like,
and our friends would pretend to be
n
our people's parents. How many
No
times did you
one
do
knew where
that?
we were.
nobody knew, and
Oh. Oh, I have to meet the parents first. "Oh, I'll get them on the phone for you. Don't
Yeah.
worry." That's
so
where
we
we learned how to be chameleons.
I knew who the
We learned
safe parents were, so I would just say that's who I was with, but then I would just be wherever. I mean, it was wild. I mean, so I think it is I think there's a combination of our styles, right, of parenting. I think we're way more open and about, we want to talk to you, like tell us what's up. We don't want to just punish you for every single thing. We want to understand and talk about it. I think also we are all therapists, which also this makes it like even crazier because we're like, how are you feel? How are you feeling? Coping skills. Like we're trying to, also support them in learning things before. Why did we all have to learn stuff because we had a mental health or an addiction issue? I feel like these kids need to be learning stuff ahead of time. So, I'm a huge advocate of getting kids into therapy on the early end when you start to see signs of stuff, or just so that they have like somebody neutral to talk to and to learn from that's not just us. I don't need to be my
Mm,
daughter's therapist.
mm.
What are some things that you feel like have been good boundaries for you in your recovery and parenting that you kind of stick to and are helpful
Like, for her own recovery?
for your recovery while like even while
Yeah.
parenting, like I think you and I have talked a lot over the years around protecting our own stability, right? There's been
Mm,
things that we've had
Yeah.
to put boundaries up around. I need to be okay to be able to take care of all these other things.
mhm,
I think I've really stuck to what you're describing. Really, I've articulated it as my daughter's gotten older about I need I need some downtime. I got a better understanding of how overstimulation impacts my mental health, and how there's a certain amount of, when kids are younger, there's a certain amount of stimulus that I would just get to a certain place where I really just I hit a limit, and I don't hit that limit as easily at all as she's gotten older. But it's interesting because my daughter has started to pick up some of the same like self-care needs, and articulates like my social battery is drained. She will say that out loud, and she will say, I'm actually going to not hang out with somebody today. I think my social battery is drained. Or after an event, she'll just need to be by herself and will say that out loud. Yeah, I'll say to her, you know, in the evening, I need some alone time, literally. Like I just can't even interact with anybody anymore. And she gets it because she's like, "You know what, mommy, I'm kind of feeling the same way."
mhm.
And I don't she could
Well,
be
that's
different than me.
modeling. It's modeling for them, right? Like,
Yeah, so I think a lot of parents feel guilt, like I should always be there. I actually don't have mommy guilt. That's one of the things I feel like I was blessed with, is I don't feel guilt for working. I don't feel guilt for having gone on business trips when she was younger. I don't feel any of that guilt for relying heavily on my husband to care for her and take her to certain things. Like there's an activity level I am not comfortable with. My daughter's in premier soccer. I'm not comfortable with that. It's too much. I would, if it weren't for my husband deciding that that's something he wanted to do with her, I would just have her on the school and the town teams. But he wanted to do this extra layer where it's out of state and there's tournaments and all this stuff. Great, but I'm not engaging in it if I'm not going to go. So I mean, Jill knows. Like I really like I'll
that
go.
is a hard boundary that there's some parents that are gonna be, like,
Whoa.
definitely judging you, and What do you mean you're not engaging in it?
I'm not going to any tournaments that are out of state with multiple games in hotel rooms. I will be a disaster on Monday, and Jill doesn't wanna work with me if I've been at a tournament on Monday. So I do it for Jill. I really do it for Jill. Um, yeah, no, I have no shame about it. I really don't. This is an extra layer of sports that my husband decided was really important, and my daughter was good at it and enjoyed it. And I kept checking in. Is this feel pressure? Do you feel like this is what you want to do? She said yes. I go to all of the games that are driving distance that I can make it to, but the out of state, like all weekend long types of events are too much for my nervous system, my sleep, and it doesn't work for me. So
I think it goes back to, you and your husband being on the same page with that. And like as a family, like she's old enough now to have those conversations, and
Does she ever say, "Oh, I wish you would come to this one," or does she not even open that door with you?
no, it's become like her thing with her father, and I think she actually really
Yeah.
likes the tournaments because he's super laid back and I would be neurotic and annoying, so it's actually works out really well for them.
But this is a
I
big
can
topic of
vouch for that. I
discussion.
can vouch for that personality distinction. Yeah.
No, yeah,
But
I
this
mean, that's how we are. We're so different and like it but honestly, I can tell you in my bones, like I
feel
literally
guilt about it.
no, I
Yeah.
don't feel guilty. I'm not just saying it to like convince myself. Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm really, really fine with it.
Sarah's
And I
okay
think
with
this
it because you
I
know
think
what?
this
On
is a
her
big
downtime in the weekends, what she does is she helps me with my interior decorating stuff and this
I
is
would
just
rather
a
go to
plug.
Michael's and pick out
Yeah.
freaking pumpkins for Jill than
Yeah.
go to a tournament, okay?
Which she
And that
does.
is a lot
So
for me.
Christmas
I
is
can
around the corner, so we got to get those boxes right for the winter holidays.
I'm in. I've got some fresh cut greens here. It's Martha Stewart.
I do think that there is this level of people needing to also hear that to give themselves permission, okay?
Yes.
Totally.
Giving the people permission to say, "This is maybe not working for me in the best way possible for my kids," because I think and some people thrive in that, right? Like, I have friends who thrive. They love the tournaments, they love being on the road together. It's a very family, cohesive, and bonding experience for them, and they have a lot of fun. Um,
Totally. I
But how
know.
many parents do we see that say yes to things and they agree to things because they're either keeping up with the Joneses because that's what everybody else is doing, or they're nervous about what other people are going to think if they don't do these things, right? And and they have to put on the face and like they're dying inside. I mean, I see
Well,
I see clients like this all the time. The
how
parents
can
that are
we
just they're
afford to do
doing
that
too
in
much.
recovery? I cannot afford to do that in
Mm.
recovery. I
That's
don't
the
have that
difference, I think.
luxury. And that's in my book, the thing that I saw the difference because I interviewed a control group of parents who were not in recovery.
Mhm.
And they worried more when I asked them, what are your thoughts on parents in recovery that are pushing the limits, that are not doing good stress management, not doing enough self care? They said, we feel the effects for us are, that it would, we would be stressed and stuff. But to us, we view it as detrimental and life threatening for people in recovery. Like they
Mm.
viewed it as optional for them, which I don't always think it is because listen, there are people with plenty of other issues going on besides us, right? That they don't put first. But I feel like because we had such an obvious, tangible thing that we were in recovery from, it was for me easier to say, I have this thing, I'm protecting this at all costs. Other parents don't necessarily have that. So that's when the yeses come in, the people pleasing comes in, and then they push their limits and have to have a drink of this, of that. I've always said if you pull away that coping mechanism that you're using and you can't handle all you've set up in your life, you've set up too much in your life. So you've got
We don't have that buffer. That is so true. Like, and
home and you can check out with the glass of wine, which I would never have one glass anyway. But my point is, like,
no, we
I
don't get that.
I feel it all, and my nervous system is sensitive. I had also one
Very sensitive.
very sensitive to caffeine. Jill is like bans me from touching Celsius. It's a whole thing. But
I've never had a Celsius. Nobody wants to see that.
I just wanted a
Mhm.
sip. But she knows. They're scared of me in a meeting if I ever was over caffeinated. But yeah, I
Wow.
grew up with one of my parents who has a very sensitive nervous system, to put it lightly. And so my my father actually said no to a lot growing up. Like, he knew his limits, and he also didn't have any shame in his game around
Mm.
that. Like, no, no. My mom was the yes. But my mom generally meant it, and it really didn't bother her. She's like annoyingly well adjusted. So so I grew up seeing a boundary. I guess I saw, and I felt like, and I feel like my dad I don't know if it makes sense, but like, I feel like my dad truly loves and supports and unconditionally. So maybe because I saw that and didn't feel like he was neglecting me in that sense, he wasn't at every single thing I did, but I feel like he thinks I could do anything in this world and believes in me and loves me. So, it could also be what I saw role modeled in
Exactly.
some.
When you think about the guilt piece, I was just talking to someone about this week. I've known families, and I think I was talking to another woman who has 2 small kids too. I've known families, and I've known moms in particular, that at all costs won't ask for help, right?
Right.
Because they feel guilty about it, or they feel scared about it. And this week was such like a really good it was such a great opportunity and kind of reciprocal moment for me, because I leaned on my son has like a really close friend at school, and his 2 parents have been like so gracious and have helped me a ton when I've been in a pinch to, do pickup or drop off or whatever. And we have like a whole rotation of people like that help, right? And I do what I can to help them when they're in need. And it's hard when you have 2 working parents and you're trying to kind
Yeah.
of balance it all, whatever. And like 2 days ago, they texted me and they said, "Hey, we're in a pinch. Can we drop, our youngest off with you to have a play date with Madden?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. It's so great." And the kids got to play. And in that moment, I was like, see, even if it meant that they felt comfortable because I had asked them for support, and I had always said, "Hey, if there's anything I can do, like, let me know." And they're always like, "No, no, like, it's okay. We'll let you know if we need anything." But they felt comfortable texting us and being like, "Hey, we're in a pinch and
Good.
we need
You know,
help."
it
I
takes
had
a
that
village.
experience I had that experience this week too. We had a
Mhm.
family that they had to drop their son off for a play date while our daughters were playing basketball together. And it's like, yeah, of course, because also I know it's like we talk about with clients. You're putting deposits in a bank, right? And when
Mm,
you rely on that mutual support, when okay, so their child comes over to our house, right? And when we watch them, we now put a deposit in their bank, right? That we can then withdraw from at a future time when we need help. And like that's how mutual support works. And
mhm.
I think a lot of times people view it as, well, we're a burden and we're putting like this pressure on somebody else, but it's like,
People
no, it's
wanna
so
help,
nice.
though. People deep down inside, a lot of people do want to help.
Yeah. It's nice to have that like
And
support where I don't have to just rely
ability
on family.
there's also the
Yeah.
ability to say no, right? And so if they can't, they can't, right? If it and I think that's also people, except
You have to
I can
be
speak for
genuine in your
myself.
response. You have to be
Yeah,
genuine.
getting comfortable with saying like either yes or no. And if I wasn't able to do it, I would be honest about that too. So I think it's also figuring out where your comfortability is around saying yes and or no, right? Because I think some people just really struggle to even be able to depict which way they should go. They feel confused.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I got sober, I remember saying no a lot. And I remember my therapist, and I felt bad because I had people mad at me, and it was like a whole thing, and it was before I had a child and was married, but still I was getting so much slack for it. And my therapist said, "You're going to go through a period of people pleasing withdrawal, and once you get over that hump, you will be able to say no."
Mm,
And I have used that with so many clients because it was so true with me. I remember feeling like, listen, the yeses are to avoid a feeling. When you say no and you get that feeling of guilt or whatever it is, the feeling that you're avoiding, you have to sit in it or you'll just forever say yes and deplete yourself. So once you get over that hump of like finding a way to view yourself and love yourself without just the approval of others and just doing things for people like that isn't that isn't like who you are as a person just because you do stuff for people, right? Like that's not
mm,
your only great trait. So I'm glad I learned that lesson earlier on in my recovery because it's helped me as a parent.
mhm,
It's like a
mhm,
really huge thing, and I've supported a lot of friends in and clients both in working through this whole disease to please and this yes. Um, and again, it doesn't, you don't have to be mean about it. The other thing that I find interesting too is everyone always feels like there needs to be an excuse. I can't because I have this, or I double booked, or I did this, or no. You can literally say, I'm actually really tired. I've had a long week and I can't do it. Like, just
No is a
say it.
complete sentence.
Yeah, like just be honest. Like, I'm
I
fine.
don't want to.
I'm fried. Yeah, or that just looks like a crappy thing to do. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like people also have to like they come up with these excuses. I have to have people in my life that can understand that when I say no to something, I don't need to come up with the reason is maybe I've just done too much that week. And for my nervous system, I also have to be cautious on my scheduling. If I overschedule things, I get overwhelmed. I can do it for a period of time, like a week or two. I can have like crazed time, right? But it has to level out or I don't recalibrate well. These are the things that I've learned in recovery. And, it's interesting. I think the things that we all have learned have helped us to be balanced as parents. So then other parents that aren't necessarily in that space see it. They're almost at times baffled by that ability to have that. And I had somebody come up to me like, how do you know your limits or this and that? It's like, I've had to figure this out. Like,
Yeah, skin your knees a bunch of times and deplete yourself.
yeah, I've had to figure this out. And the cost is too great. Like I'm not willing to take that chance.
What do you feel like is one, as we wrap up, what do you feel like is one takeaway from parents in recovery that you didn't anticipate?
I didn't anticipate all the wisdom that people had to share. Like when I would look through the interviews I did, I learned so much from what there were over 400 years of recovery that were shared with me through the interviews. And I didn't expect so much information and wisdom and what like just words of suggestions for other parents like I I was blown away. Again, I'm tired of my own suggestions. So to hear other people's was so amazing and then to put it all together, I didn't expect the richness of other people's experiences. So that was just I would just sit there highlighting stuff and just being like my head would explode. So I was happy to share this book because it to me it was like a field guide and a shortcut for parents because a lot of us we just figured it out right chatting with a few people or people at your self-help meetings or your therapist or your friends like but to get all of it and put it into one place for me it blew my mind like what you know how that could maybe help people without having to survey as many people as we did. Uh,
I mean, it was I just feel like I'm really thinking about a select population because I was last night at a support group for women and children, and these women were just getting into recovery and had, one baby was 2 weeks old, another baby was 3 weeks old, and there was another baby there that was 1. And I was watching how they were interacting with the other, women in the facility, and I just really this interview couldn't have come at a better time because the gratitude that I felt, 1, that they had the resources, but 2, that I had the level of infrastructure and support when I had children.
mm,
I look at women, I look at them and I'm like, "God, they're strong," because that is no joke. To be able to get into recovery with a newborn, potentially for their first time ever,
sure.
and be doing that simultaneously while raising a child, I was blown away about the strength.
No.
So I'm so excited that you were here. I'm definitely going back there and I want to bring them some copies because I think it will be
Oh,
so beneficial for them and to be able to, pull out nuggets that sometimes people don't have you know, don't have the vision, don't have the architecture, don't have the foundation to be able to even think like, how am I
Yeah.
going to be able to maintain my recovery while I'm a parent? So
well, and there were different combinations. There were some parents that got sober after they had children, some before, and some both. Like they had a couple of children when they were using then they got sober and had a couple children afterwards, which was interesting because they kind of had,
Both
you know,
sides.
yeah, they were able to see both experiences and speak to
Mhm.
that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's all possible, but it's only possible through connecting with other people
Mhm.
and asking for support and using the village.
Mhm.
Mhm. So we end every episode. I didn't even give you a heads up on this, but we end every episode with giving permission to our listeners for something. So,
Oh,
what would your permission slip be?
my permission slip is definitely to say no. um, it doesn't have to just be a no with a no. It can be a no with I'm just overwhelmed this week. Just and to try that.
Mhm.
And if a person disowns you over that, it may not be the best friend. I think it's also a test. So
Yeah.
you have got endless permission slips to do that. Because we need to model that too, because you also give a permission slip to another person when you do that.
Including our
And
children.
how
Yes.
can
Yes, our children see it.
how can people find you if they have questions about the book? Where can they buy the book? Give us just a short, rundown
So the book's
for
available
parents
on
in recovery.
Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and Bloomsbury. There's actually Bloomsbury is the publisher of both of my books. And my website personal is bentonbhc.com. I have I don't use Instagram as much as I should, but I have a Parents in Recovery Instagram. I have a Facebook Parents in Recovery Facebook group, and I have a Psychology Today blog called The High Functioning Alcoholic, which I've been doing a Parents in Recovery series with.
Oh, great.
My email is on my website, so I would love for people to reach out. I always appreciate hearing feedback and thoughts from readers, and that's what brings the meaning to me for the work.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Sarah.
Thank
We
you
so
so much for
appreciate
coming
you.
on.
Such a fun
Yeah,
episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of
You guys
course.
rock.
peace.